All right, let's dive into this really ancient and honestly powerful prophecy from the book of Zechariah. It's a fascinating story that kicks off with this incredible sense of hope, but then it takes a really shocking turn toward betrayal. But it definitely doesn't end there.
Now, I know what you're thinking, but this is not the start of a bad joke. It's actually the central kind of startling image in a prophecy that has just captivated people for centuries. It's a question that really forces us to rethink what true power and, what real victory actually looks like.
So, to really get the power of this promise, you have to understand the problem. You have to feel it. The people of Israel, they'd come back from exile, but they weren't really free. They were discouraged, kind of struggling under the weight of these corrupt leaders, and they were just desperate for a rescuer. They needed a true king.
And then boom, cutting right through all that despair comes this absolutely breathtaking announcement in Zechariah 9:9. Just listen to the sheer joy in these words. Behold, your king is coming to you. This isn't some vague hope for someday. This is a direct promise. It's a declaration that their long wait is almost over.
Okay, and this is where the prophecy just flips every expectation on its head. Just look at the contrast here. A king on a warhorse. Well, that screams conquest, power, military force, right? But a king on a donkey? That's a super deliberate and powerful symbol of peace, of humility, of everyday life. His whole mission isn't to conquer nations, but to bring peace to them. Totally different.
This was revolutionary. Think about it. In a world totally dominated by the massive war machines of places like Persia and Greece, this was a promise of a completely new world order, one that wasn't established by force, but by humility. Wild.
So just as this incredible hope is being established, the prophecy takes this really dark, unexpected turn. You get to chapter 11, and that joyful tone just vanishes. It shifts dramatically to one of accusation and pessimism. And here, the prophecy becomes this kind of living drama. God actually tells the prophet Zechariah to physically act out the role of the coming king. And the king is now pictured as a good shepherd who's trying to save his people, his flock, from their own self-serving leaders. So this lays out this tragic little performance in 4 acts. First, the shepherd takes care of the flock, but then he shatters his staff named Favor, which symbolizes the covenant of protection God had placed around them. So that's gone. Then he asks for his wages, and the payment he gets is just a profound insult. And this leads to the final act. He breaks his second staff, Union, and the nation itself fractures from the inside out.
So what was his payment? 30 pieces of silver. Now, to put that in perspective, according to the law back in Exodus, this was the compensation value for an injured slave. So it wasn't just a low wage, it was basically a price tag that declared the shepherd and the God who sent him to be totally worthless.
And this final act, throwing that contemptible wage into the temple treasury, that sealed the deal. It was the definitive public act of rejection by the people's own leaders.
So, this jarring rejection leaves us with a pretty critical question. What does it all mean? Why would a prophecy about a great king include his own people just casting him aside?
Well, a lot of scholars see this prophecy working on 2 levels. On one hand, it's kind of looking backward. It's serving as this powerful history lesson for Zechariah's audience, basically saying, hey, don't repeat the same mistakes your ancestors made. But it's also looking forward, pointing with just stunning accuracy to a future messianic event.
And the authors of the New Testament Gospels, they saw all these strange, really specific details not as just coincidences, but as fulfillments. The humble king coming in on a donkey? Yep, it's there. That insulting price of 30 silver coins? It's there too. Even the weird mention of a potter. They saw it all as a pre-written story that was reaching its dramatic climax in the life of Jesus.
Okay, so why should this ancient story of a rejected king matter to us now, thousands of years later? What's the takeaway for today? Well, first, it gives us this timeless and really powerful contrast between true, selfless leadership and the corrupt, self-serving kind. One shepherd protects and unifies, the others, they just exploit and scatter. It's a challenge, really, to examine the nature of leadership in our own lives and in our world.
But beyond that, it offers this incredibly profound perspective on failure. What looked like a devastating defeat, the rejection of the Good Shepherd, is actually presented as the very mechanism for an ultimate victory. The worst possible moment becomes the turning point.
And that brings us to the ultimate point. The story doesn't end with rejection. Nope. The same prophecy that foretold the humble king on a donkey also points to his glorious return, a return where he will finally, at long last, establish his kingdom of peace forever.
So this ancient prophecy leaves us with this final, pretty provocative thought. It really challenges us to find hope, not in trying to avoid failure, but in re-examining it, in asking what larger, redemptive story our own setbacks might actually be a part of.